could drop dead right now.
Oh, you're not.
That's what I'm saying. If I was to drop dead right now.
The internet still hasn't recovered from DMX seeming to predict his own death, and now a new murder footage is circulating, shocking fans and investigators alike. This clip doesn't just raise questions, it shatters the story of his final moments. And the real twist? It implicates big names in the rap industry. The night everything changed. On the evening of April 2nd, 2021, a frantic emergency call pierced through the quiet suburban night of White Plains, New York. The caller reported an unresponsive male at a residence, a man who wasn't breathing, a man who had no pulse, a man whose heart had simply stopped beating. That man was Earl Simmons, known to the entire world as DMX. Now, before we dive headfirst into the murder footage and examine the explosive, incendiary claims that have resurfaced and mutated and evolved in the years following his passing, you need to truly understand exactly what transpired on that fateful night, because the truth, as it always did with DMX, is far more complicated, far more nuanced, and far more devastatingly tragic than any clickbait headline could ever hope to capture. Paramedics arrived at the scene at approximately 10:09 p.m. and immediately initiated resuscitation efforts at 10:10 p.m. What those first responders encountered when they burst through those doors was nothing short of catastrophic, a full-blown cardiac arrest. DMX's heart having completely stopped, his brain having been cruelly starved of life-giving oxygen for what medical professionals would later estimate as somewhere between 30 and 40 agonizing, irreversible minutes. Now, to understand the full gravity of that number, you need to understand something about the human brain. The human brain, that miraculous 3-pound organ that houses our memories, our personalities, our very essence, can only survive without adequate oxygen for approximately 4 to 6 minutes before irreversible, catastrophic damage begins to set in. DMX had exceeded that threshold by a factor of nearly 10. The implications were devastating beyond measure. The paramedics worked frantically, desperately, heroically. They managed to restart his heart somewhere en route to White Plains Hospital. For a brief, shimmering moment, hope flickered in the darkness. But the damage, the catastrophic, irreversible, soul-crushing damage to his brain tissue had already been done. The war had already been lost before anyone even knew it was being fought. By the time DMX arrived at the hospital's intensive care unit around 10:50 p.m., he was intubated and placed on a mechanical ventilator due to complete respiratory failure. He had slipped into a coma, a deep, unresponsive state from which, as it would tragically turn out, he would never emerge. And then the chaos began, the absolute unrelenting chaos. You see, when you're an icon of DMX's extraordinary magnitude, a man who had sold over 75 million records worldwide, a man who had achieved the unprecedented, seemingly impossible feat of having his first 5 consecutive albums debut at the #1 position on the Billboard 200 chart, a man whose barking delivery, whose growling intensity, whose raw confessional poetry had defined and shaped and influenced an entire generation of hip-hop music and culture. When a man of that stature falls, the world does not sit patiently by the telephone waiting for official statements and press releases. His attorney, the longtime legal representative Murray Richmond, initially confirmed to the gathered media that DMX had indeed suffered a heart attack, but deliberately, cautiously withheld any details about a potential overdose, stating only that the precise cause remained unknown. Family members from every corner of the country dropped everything and rushed to New York, desperate to be by his side. But the cruel reality of COVID-19 protocols meant they could only visit one at a time, watching helplessly through glass barriers as the man they loved lay motionless, machines breathing for him, monitors beeping out the rhythm of a life slowly slipping away. By April 4th, the brain scans painted a picture so devastating that even the most optimistic medical professionals were forced to confront the brutal truth. A family statement released through publicist Angelo Ellerby described DMX as being in a vegetative state with no current brain activity. The writing, as the saying goes, was written on the wall in letters 10 feet tall. But the internet, the collective consciousness of millions of fans and followers and observers, they weren't ready to accept that devastating reality. They refused to accept it. On April 5th, in a display of love and grief and desperate hope that moved even the most hardened observers, hundreds upon hundreds of people gathered for a prayer vigil outside White Plains Hospital, organized by the Rough Riders to the Rescue Foundation, the charitable arm of DMX's legendary record label. They held homemade signs that formed a giant X when viewed from above. They released balloons into the gray April sky. They prayed openly, desperately, collectively for a miracle that the cold, unfeeling calculus of medical science had already determined was an impossibility. Celebrities from every corner of the entertainment industry flooded social media with their prayers and well wishes. LeBron James, Eminem, Missy Elliott, and countless others. years. The entire entertainment world seemed to collectively hold its breath, waiting, hoping, praying, and then came the hoaxes. The cruel, thoughtless, devastating hoaxes. On April 7th, Real Housewives of Atlanta alum Claudia Jordan tweeted, and then quickly, sheepishly deleted, that DMX had died. The backlash from fans and fellow celebrities was immediate, fierce, and unrelenting. But she wasn't the last person to jump the gun, to prioritize being first over being accurate. On April 8th, just mere hours before his actual death would be officially announced to the world, comedian Luenell, who considered herself a genuine friend of DMX, posted an Instagram story that read simply, "It is over. My friend is gone. Soar with the Eagles. Join the best that ever did it, RIP, DMX." The post, which she deleted shortly after the firestorm it created, sent absolute shockwaves rippling across the entire internet. RIP DMX began trending worldwide on Twitter within minutes. Streetwear brand Saint amplified the false news with their own tweet, later apologizing profusely and deleting their post. DMX's beleaguered manager, Steve Rifkin, was forced to post a video pleading with the public, his voice heavy with exhaustion and grief. "Everybody, please stop with posting these rumors. DMX is still alive. Let the family relax for a night." But there was no relaxation to be found anywhere. Not for the family, not for the fans, not for anyone who loved DMX. On April 9th, 2021, after careful consultation with medical professionals and agonizing deliberation among family members, life support was withdrawn as DMX's organs failed completely and irreversibly. Earl Simmons, DMX, was pronounced dead at 5:13 p.m. Eastern Time, surrounded by the people who had loved him through every triumph and every failure, every mountain peak and every valley low.
I could drop dead right now.
Oh, you're not.
That's what I'm saying. Listen what I'm saying. If I was to drop dead right now, my last thought would be, I've had a good life.
Those words, those haunting, prophetic words, spoken just 1 month, a mere 30 days before his death, they would become the bedrock foundation upon which countless conspiracy theories would be constructed, brick by paranoid brick, theories that persist stubbornly to this very day, theories that claim with absolute certainty that what happened to DMX wasn't an accident at all, wasn't a tragedy of addiction, but something far more sinister.
Some of y'all too young to even really know his catalog, but one of the greatest I ever did is Send Up Your Prayers. Currently, he's in pretty much a coma. He suffered a heart attack after he allegedly OD'd. He's at the hospital. You know, they're saying that there's some brain activity, but they don't know if he'll actually fully recover. We're sending up prayers.
DJ Academic spoke those words while DMX still clung desperately to life. And even then, even in those desperate, hope-filled hours, the word allegedly hung heavy in the air like smoke from a fire nobody wanted to acknowledge. Because for DMX, nothing was ever simple. Nothing was ever straightforward. Nothing was ever precisely what it appeared to be on the surface. The official family statement released to the press read, "Earl was a warrior who fought till the very end. He loved his family with all of his heart. Earl's music inspired countless fans across the world, and his iconic legacy will live on forever. A warrior." That's the word they chose. And perhaps that's precisely what he was. A man who had been fighting battles, visible and invisible, from the very moment he came screaming into this world on December 18th, 1970, in Mount Vernon, New York. But the question that would consume vast swaths of the internet in the days, weeks, months, and now years following his death was this: what exactly was he fighting against at the very end? And who or what finally claimed victory? The conspiracy machine. Let us be absolutely, unequivocally clear about something before we proceed any further down this rabbit hole. The internet did not wait, did not have the patience, did not have the restraint, did not have the basic human decency to wait for an official cause of death before theories about what really happened to DMX surfaced. The very same day his death was announced to the world, April 9th, 2021, a date that should have been reserved for mourning and reflection, a celebrity gossip website published an article with the explosive, inflammatory headline, "DMX received COVID vaccine days before heart attack. Family says no drugs." The article quoted an unnamed, unverified family member who allegedly claimed that DMX had received the COVID-19 vaccine approximately 1 week before his collapse in order to resume traveling and performing live concerts. This anonymous source allegedly stated he took that vaccine and he had a heart attack. I'm not saying the vaccine did it, but he never had a heart attack before. Within mere hours, not days, not weeks, but hours. This single claim from an anonymous source on a website website that had spread like an uncontrolled wildfire across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and every dark, dank corner of the internet where conspiracy theories breed and multiply and mutate into increasingly elaborate forms. Former Major League Baseball player Aubrey Huff tweeted to his substantial following, "I'm hearing DMX received the Darwin COVID-19 vaccine just a week before his heart attack. Anyone else hearing this?" That single tweet garnered over 2,000 likes and hundreds of reposts, spreading the unverified claim to countless additional eyes and ears. Former United States Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney eagerly joined the swelling chorus of conspiracy-minded voices, posting with apparent certainty, "Yep, DMX had the COVID-19 experimental gene therapy shot. By April 12th, just 3 days after DMX's death, the hashtag #NarDMX vaccine was trending on Twitter, and the tragic death of one of hip-hop's most beloved and influential figures had been crudely, cynically absorbed into the broader anti-vaccination narrative that was sweeping through American society during the height of the global pandemic." But the vaccine conspiracy theory, as outlandish and unfounded as it was, represented merely the beginning of the storm. You see, DMX wasn't just any rapper who had died under tragic circumstances. He was a man who had spent his entire 3-decade career speaking openly, fearlessly, and frequently about the dark underbelly of the music industry, about the predatory forces that prey upon young black artists, about the Faustian bargains that are offered in exchange for fame and fortune, about the deals that demand more than just your talent and your time. They demand your very soul.
You know, he was a person who always dealt with problems and dealt with pretty much everything that was adversity with prayer. So, you know, it's only right that when he's in his moment of need that we try to offer prayer as well. You get me? For some of y'all that don't know the story of DMX, not only was he one of the greatest entertainers that ever came through hip hop, but he's someone who's had a very up and down life.
And precisely because DMX was so open, so raw, so completely and unflinchingly honest about his battles with both addiction and the machinations of the music industry, conspiracy theorists found extraordinarily fertile ground upon which to plant their darkest, most elaborate theories. The theory that DMX had been deliberately sacrificed by powerful music executives, particularly Jay-Z, who had once served as president of Def Jam Recordings, and the label itself, gained significant, disturbing traction in online communities. The narrative constructed by these theorists went something like this. DMX had accumulated massive, crushing debts to Def Jam from unrecouped advances on albums that hadn't performed to commercial expectations. He had publicly, loudly criticized the label and its executives on numerous occasions, and he had steadfastly refused to sell out by conforming to the commercial pressures and artistic compromises demanded by record label executives. When Jay-Z assumed the presidency of Def Jam in December of 2004, DMX's projects were allegedly deprioritized, shelved, and sabotaged in favor of newer, younger, more compliant artists. The conspiracy theorists eagerly connected DMX's death to broader, long-standing hip-hop mythology, specifically the still officially unsolved murders of Tupac Shakur in 1996 and the notorious B.I.G. in 1997. The logic, such as it was, proceeded as follows. If those legendary figures could be gunned down in the absolute prime of their careers under circumstances that remained murky and contested decades later, why couldn't DMX be eliminated through more subtle, more deniable means? And then there emerged perhaps the most bizarre, most disconnected from reality theory of all, the Lil Nas X birthday sacrifice conspiracy. April 9th, 2021, the very day DMX drew his final breath and was pronounced dead, was also, by pure coincidence, Lil Nas X's 22nd birthday. Just days earlier, Lil Nas X had released his controversial Satan shoes in collaboration with art collective MSCHF, modified Nike Air Max 97 sneakers featuring a bronze pentagram, an inverted cross, and allegedly containing a single drop of human blood in each sole. The shoes, provocatively priced at $1,018, a deliberate reference to the Bible verse Luke 10:18, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven," had ignited a firestorm of conservative outrage and religious condemnation. Conspiracy theorists constructed their narrative. DMX, a devout Christian known for incorporating gospel elements and fervent prayers into his aggressive hip-hop, had been ritualistically sacrificed on the birthday of an artist who had literally manufactured and marketed shoes celebrating Satan himself. The coincidence, they argued with passionate conviction, was simply too perfect, too precise, too symbolically loaded to be merely coincidental. A tweet claiming with absolute certainty that DMX was a sacrifice as he died on Lil Nas X B-Day. No such thing as chance went viral almost immediately, accumulating hundreds of likes and spawning countless response threads, quote tweets, and copycat posts, spreading the theory further. leader, Lil Nas X himself, eventually felt compelled to respond to the mounting accusations with a tweet that captured both his genuine fear and his complete exhaustion with the madness. It genuinely scares me knowing how crazy you are. Regardless, it was the story of addiction, a brutal, relentless, life-destroying addiction that began when he was just 14 years old, an addiction that was cruelly forced upon him by someone he loved and trusted, an addiction that would haunt and torment him for the remaining 36 years of his tragically shortened life. But we'll get to that devastating origin story in due time, because understanding exactly how DMX was first introduced to the drugs that would eventually claim his life is absolutely essential to understanding why he died, and why no conspiracy theory, no matter how elaborate or emotionally satisfying, can change the fundamental, heartbreaking tragedy of what actually happened. By 2025, the theories had evolved, mutated, and metastasized even further. Some claimed with straight faces that DMX had faked his own death and was living comfortably in Cuba, echoing similar long-standing rumors about Tupac Shakur. Others suggested he had been cloned by shadowy government agencies and replaced with a duplicate, with supposed evidence consisting of nothing more than poorly made deepfake videos circulating on TikTok. The fringes of the internet even connected his death to CIA operations and government plots, claiming federal intelligence agencies had silenced DMX because he was on the verge of revealing devastating secrets about systemic corruption within the music industry. The truth they don't want you to know. On July 8, 2021, 3 long, agonizing months after DMX's death, the Westchester County Medical Examiner's Office finally released their official, conclusive findings to the public. The cause of death was ruled accidental, resulting from acute cocaine intoxication that triggered a massive heart attack, which in turn led to anoxic brain injury caused by prolonged oxygen deprivation. Comprehensive toxicology tests confirmed the presence of cocaine as the primary intoxicating substance, with traces of fentanyl, alcohol, and the anti-anxiety medication Xanax also detected in his system. The official manner of death was classified as accidental. No autopsy dissection was deemed necessary. The combination of urine toxicology results, detailed paramedic reports, and comprehensive hospital documentation provided more than sufficient evidence to reach a definitive conclusion. No foul play, no murder, no elaborate conspiracy involving music executives or government agencies or birthday sacrifices, just cocaine, the same drug that had been systematically, relentlessly destroying DMX's life since before the vast majority of his fans were even born. DMX's longtime attorney, Murray Richmond, explicitly and forcefully denied the vaccine conspiracy theory, stating unequivocally and on the record, DMX did not receive the COVID-19 vaccine a week before his cardiac arrest. Professional fact-checkers from PolitiFact, Snopes, and USA Today all rated the vaccine claims as definitively, conclusively false. But here's the thing about conspiracy theories that so few people truly understand. They provide comfort. They provide emotional solace in the face of incomprehensible tragedy. They give people an enemy to blame, a villain to despise, a coherent narrative that makes sense of senseless tragedy. The truth that addiction kills indiscriminately, that it kills slowly and painfully, and without any regard whatsoever for talent or fame or commercial success or how many platinum albums hang on your wall, that truth is far more difficult to accept. That truth offers no villains, no easy answers, no satisfying resolution, because the truth requires us to understand how DMX became an addict in the first place. And that story is the real tragedy that underlies everything else.
From being in these institutions from the age of 7 to 14, I mean, and this guy, Reddy Ron, I mean, he was like an older brother to me. And I looked up to him like an older brother, you know what I'm saying? I love this guy like an older brother, you know, and I don't have any brothers. But this guy, man, this guy, he introduced me to what would be the best part of my life, which would be the rap. But he also, at the end of my life, is blessed with the curse. I didn't smoke cigarettes, I didn't smoke weed, I didn't do anything. I'm 14 years old. So he came back with a blunt rolled up. He likes the blunt. Like I said, I was impressed. I don't really smoke, nigga. And he passed the blunt around. And wow. And I hit the blunt and I'm like, I never felt like this, like it just me up. I'm like, the f. And I later found out that he laced the blunt with crack. I think. Why would you do that to a child?
The rap.
And this nigga, like 30, you know what I'm saying? And he knew how I looked up to him. Why would you do that to somebody who looks up to you? Like, I mean, a monster was born. A monster was born. I mean, and that's like I wouldn't do that to my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Ready Ron, the man DMX looked up to as an older brother during the most vulnerable, formative years of his adolescence. The man who introduced him to rap, yes, to the art form that would eventually make him famous and wealthy and beloved by millions, but also the man who, without DMX's knowledge or consent, without any warning whatsoever, laced a marijuana blunt with crack cocaine and handed it to a 14-year-old child who had never used any substances in his entire young life. That moment, that single, devastating, unforgivable moment of betrayal by someone he loved and trusted, created the monster that DMX would spend every remaining day of his life battling. He would enter rehabilitation facilities multiple times over the following decades. He would cancel highly anticipated tours to focus on his sobriety and recovery. He would preach passionately about God's grace and the power of redemption in countless interviews, in his music, in impromptu prayer sessions that moved grown men to tears. And yet the monster, born in that singular moment of betrayal by a man he called brother, never truly died. It merely waited, patient and hungry, for its next opportunity to strike. DMX's childhood was a crucible of unimaginable trauma and suffering. Born to teenage parents, his mother Arnett, just 19 years old, his father Joe Barker, barely 18, he experienced horrific physical abuse from his earliest memories. His mother beat him viciously with a broom handle at age 6, a blow so severe it knocked out 2 of his teeth. He was struck by a drunk driver as a young child, diagnosed with bronchial asthma that would plague him throughout his life, and placed in institutional group homes by age 10 after being expelled from school for violent fighting. Abandoned by family, rejected by society, he found his only true companionship with the stray dogs that roamed the dangerous streets of Yonkers, New York. Hence his eventual professional moniker, Dogman X, later shortened to simply DMX. The pit bulls that would later become an integral part of his public iconography weren't just pets or accessories. They were the only living creatures that had ever shown him unconditional love during those formative, brutal years of mere survival. Irv Gotti, speaking about DMX's authenticity, captured something absolutely essential about the man and his art. Everything DMX did, everything he rapped about with that distinctive growling delivery, everything he confessed in raw, emotional interviews throughout his career, it was all real. The pain was real. The addiction was real. The struggle was real. There was no performance, no persona, no carefully constructed public image. What you saw was what you got, and the death was real too. Steve Rifkin, DMX's dedicated manager, understood the deep, genuine love that surrounded this complicated, tortured man. Swizz Beatz, the legendary producer who had crafted some of DMX's greatest, most enduring hits, wasn't working with him for financial compensation or career advancement. He was working with him out of pure, genuine, unconditional brotherly love. When the devastating news of the heart attack first broke, Swizz was thousands of miles away in Saudi Arabia. He called back immediately, desperately seeking information, desperate to help his brother in any way possible.
And then a few hours later, X's fiance called.
Yeah.
And she was hysterical crying, and that's when we knew how serious it was.
You know, and I remember I talked to Craig about this, and what he was saying was that X had actually been clean for a while, which is why he was so heavy. Because a lot of times when you get off the drugs, you know, like you start to put on weight because the drugs keep you thin. And he said that's why he was the heaviest he'd ever seen him.
The cruel, bitter irony embedded in that revelation is almost too painful to contemplate. DMX had apparently been clean and sober for a significant period before his death. His noticeable weight gain in his final months was actually evidence of his sobriety. When you cease using powerful stimulants like cocaine, your body naturally begins to put on weight. He was actively working on new music with Swizz, creating art with renewed energy and focus. He was trying to rebuild his life, his career, his relationships. He was fighting the monster with everything he had. But addiction doesn't care about your fight. Addiction doesn't care about your prayers or your family or your platinum records or your legacy. Addiction is patient and relentless and utterly without mercy. And on April 2nd, 2021, the monster that had been born 36 years earlier in a moment of betrayal finally claimed its ultimate victory. DMX's grieving family had to fight through a second, equally devastating tragedy in the chaotic aftermath of his death. The vultures who descended to pick at the corpse of his legacy. Fake GoFundMe GoFundMe pages appeared within hours, claiming to raise money for his funeral expenses. Scammers manufactured and sold unauthorized merchandise bearing his name and likeness. A viral tweet falsely claimed that Jay-Z and Beyonce had purchased DMX's masters for $10 million as a gift to his children, a completely fabricated claim the exhausted family was forced to publicly deny, while simultaneously planning a funeral. The family released a statement that captured both their grief and their frustration. "We are not selling any merch or raising money for Earl's funeral. If anyone is requesting for money, the person is a scammer." Even in death, even in the depths of their grief, they couldn't escape the exploitation that had defined so much of DMX's career and life. But they also couldn't escape the overwhelming tsunami of love that poured forth. On April 24th, 2021, over 15,000 people gathered at Brooklyn's Barclays Center for DMX's homegoing celebration, a funeral unlike any other in hip-hop history. Kanye West's Sunday Service Choir performed stirring gospel arrangements. Jadakiss, Swizz Beatz, Method Man, and Busta Rhymes delivered tearful, passionate tributes. His ornate casket arrived in a monster truck emblazoned with the words, "Long live DMX." New York Governor Andrew Cuomo officially declared December 18th, DMX's birthday, as Earl DMX Simmons Day throughout the entire state. The man who had been beaten, abandoned, drugged against his will, imprisoned, repeatedly, mocked endlessly, and exploited ruthlessly was finally, at long last, in death, given the respect and honor and recognition that his extraordinary artistry and resilience had always deserved. Thanks for watching. If you found this video shocking and unbelievable, be sure to check out other similar and amazing videos on the screen. See you in the next video.